3 people were in the room. The official account names 2 of them. The third has never been named. Not in the police report filed on the morning of July 21, 1973. Not in the coroner's inquest that followed. Not in any of the official documentation produced by the investigation into Bruce Lee's death. An investigation that was, by any honest assessment, brief, limited, and concluded faster than the circumstances warranted. The third person was there. Multiple witnesses from outside the room, people in the building, people who arrived in the immediate aftermath, have described, in accounts given over the subsequent decades, a man leaving the premises before the police arrived. Not running. Walking. Quickly but not urgently. As if he had somewhere to be and had calculated, with the specific precision of someone who understood the importance of not being present when the authorities arrived, exactly how much time he had. Nobody stopped him. Nobody asked his name. Nobody reported seeing him. For 30 years, he was the invisible man in the story of Bruce Lee's death. A detail without a name. Presence without a record. And then, on a Tuesday night in October of 2003, a radio program called Unresolved, a late-night show on a Hong Kong station that covered cold cases and historical mysteries, received a phone call. The caller said he had information about Bruce Lee's death. The host put him on air. He spoke for 11 minutes. He gave his name once. By the following morning, the station's archive copy of the broadcast had been erased. The man who called has never been seen or heard from since. Welcome to the channel. Stay with me because the story of those 11 minutes, what the man said, what he saw, why he waited 30 years to say it, and what happened to him after he said it, is the most disturbing account of the night Bruce Lee died that has ever been made public. And the question of who erased the archive copy and why and how they did it within hours of a live broadcast is the question that the radio host who kept a personal copy of the recording has been living with for 20 years. Hong Kong. July 20th, 1973. Evening. The official account is as follows. Bruce Lee spent the afternoon at the apartment of actress Betty Ting Pei in Beacon Hill. He complained of a headache. He took a painkiller, Equagesic, a combination analgesic containing aspirin and meprobamate. He lay down to rest. When Raymond Chow, who was also present, attempted to wake him for a dinner engagement, he could not be roused. An ambulance was called. Bruce Lee was transported to Queen Elizabeth Hospital. He was pronounced dead on arrival. The official account involves 2 people in the apartment at the time Bruce Lee lost consciousness. Betty Ting Pei, Raymond Chow. These are the names in the police report. These are the names that appear in the inquest. These are the names that have appeared in every official and semi-official account of that evening for 50 years. The third person is not in any of these documents. But he was there. And 30 years later he called a radio station and spoke for 11 minutes, and then disappeared. If you love Bruce Lee stories, like this video and subscribe. New stories every single day. The radio program Unresolved aired every Tuesday night from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. on a Hong Kong station that specialized in late-night talk programming. The host, a man named Victor Lam who had been running the program for 6 years by 2003, has described the call in the single account he has given of it, in a recorded interview conducted in 2019 by a researcher working on a documentary about unsolved deaths in Hong Kong. He says, "We received many calls every week from people who claimed to have information about famous cases. Most of them were not credible. People who had read the same books as everyone else and wanted to add their interpretation. People who had theories. People who needed to feel connected to something significant." He says, this call was different from the first sentence. The call came in at 12:47 in the morning. Victor Lam screened it before putting it on air, a standard practice for the program. He spoke to the caller briefly off-air. He asked what he had. The caller said he had been present at the apartment on the night Bruce Lee died, and that he had information that had not been included in the official account. Victor Lam put him on air. He says, "In 16 years of broadcasting, I have put many people on air who claim things they could not support. This man was not claiming. He was describing specific details. Things that were not in any book, not in any report, not available to someone who had not been there. I knew within 30 seconds that he was telling the truth. The caller spoke for 11 minutes. Victor Lamb has described the content of those 11 minutes in general terms, has not provided a verbatim account, has said that the full content of what the caller described is preserved on his personal recording, and that he has chosen not to release it in full for reasons that he describes as personal safety. What he has described publicly. The caller said he had been brought to the apartment that afternoon by Raymond Chow for reasons connected to a business discussion that was supposed to take place before the dinner engagement. He was not there as a guest. He was there in a professional capacity, a capacity that he described on air but that Victor Lamb has declined to specify in his public account. He was in a separate room when Bruce Lee took the painkiller and lay down. He was still in the apartment when Bruce Lee lost consciousness. He says what he witnessed in the period between Bruce Lee losing consciousness and the ambulance arriving was not consistent with the official account of what happened. Not in the detail of the painkiller. Not in the sequence of events. Not in what was done and not done in the time between Bruce Lee becoming unresponsive and the call for emergency services being made. Victor Lamb says, he described a gap. A period of time between when Bruce Lee became unresponsive and when the call for an ambulance was made. He said this gap was longer than the official account indicates. He said things happened in that gap. He said he saw things in that gap that he had been unable to explain to himself for 30 years and that he was finally describing because he believed he was dying and he did not want to die with it. He said he was ill. He did not give details. He said he had been ill for several years and that the illness had changed his calculation about what to keep and what to say. Victor Lamb asked him, "Why call a radio program? Why not go to the police?" The caller said, "I went to the police in 1973. I was told that my presence at the apartment had not been officially recorded and that it would be better for everyone if it remained that way. I understood what that meant. I have understood what it meant for 30 years. He gave his name once, at the beginning of the call, before the conversation deepened into its more significant territory. Victor Lamb has that name. He has not released it. He says, I checked the name after the broadcast. The person exists or existed. There are records. He is connected to the film industry of that period in ways that are consistent with what he described. I am satisfied that he was who he said he was. He says, I have not released the name because the circumstances of what happened after the broadcast have made me cautious about what I release and when. If you love Bruce Lee stories, like this video and subscribe. New stories every single day. The archive copy of the broadcast was erased by the following morning. Victor Lamb discovered this when he arrived at the station at 9 a.m. on Wednesday and asked the archive department for the standard recording of the previous night's broadcast. The archive department said the recording did not exist. He said, every broadcast is automatically recorded. It is a standard procedure. It has been a standard procedure for 11 years. They said, the recording equipment experienced a failure during that specific window. The broadcast from 12:47 to 1:17 a.m. was not captured. Victor Lamb looked at them. He went back to his office. He opened his desk drawer. He took out the personal recorder he had been using since the first year of the program, a small handheld device that he ran during every broadcast as a personal backup, a habit developed after a technical failure had cost him a particularly important interview early in his career. The recording was there. 11 minutes and 23 seconds of a man describing what he saw on the night of July 20th, 1973. Victor Lamb listened to it. He put it back in the drawer. He took it home that evening. He has kept it at home since. He says, I understand what the erasure of the archive copy means. I understood it that morning. A live broadcast in 2003 did not erase itself due to equipment failure. Equipment failures happen. Equipment failures do not happen selectively to a single 30-minute window and not to the 2 hours of programming on either side of that window. He says, someone erased it. Deliberately. Within hours of the broadcast. Someone who had the access and the reason. He says, I decided that morning that I would keep what I had and that I would be careful about who I told and when I told them. He says, I am telling you now because 20 years have passed and the person whose name is on that recording is almost certainly gone. And because the thing the caller described happening in the gap between Bruce Lee losing consciousness and the ambulance being called deserves to be known. He has not released the recording. He has described its contents in one recorded interview. That interview has been seen by 4 people. The researcher who conducted it, 2 journalists who were given access to verify its authenticity, and 1 member of the Lee family who requested to hear it and whose response Victor Lam has declined to describe. He says only, they heard it. They know what is on it. What they do with that knowledge is not my decision. The man who called the radio station on Tuesday, October 14, 2003, the man who gave his name once, who spoke for 11 minutes, who described a gap in the official account of the night Bruce Lee died, has not been located by any of the researchers or journalists who have attempted to find him since Victor Lam's interview became known. The records that Victor Lam found when he searched the name are incomplete in the way that records from that period and that industry often are partial, inconsistently maintained, the kind of record that exists until it does not. He may have died of the illness he mentioned on the call. He may have chosen to disappear. He may have been made to disappear. Victor Lam does not know which. He says, I think about him. I think about what it cost him to make that call. 30 years of silence and then 11 minutes on a late-night radio program because he was dying and he could not die with it. That is a significant thing. That is a person deciding that the truth matters more than whatever the truth costs. He says. And then the archive was erased. And he was gone. And I have a 30-minute recording in my house that 11 minutes of it are the most important thing anyone has said publicly about the night Bruce Lee died. He says. I will release it. I am not ready yet, but I will release it. He says. I owe him that. He made the call. Someone should hear what he said. Bruce Lee died on July 20, 1973. The official account has 2 names. The third name was given once on a live radio broadcast in 2003. The archive was erased by morning. The man was never seen again. And in a house in Hong Kong, a radio host has a personal recording that he is not yet ready to release. But he will. He said so. He owes it to a man who waited 30 years to make an 11-minute phone call because he was dying and could not die with it. Be water. Truth finds its way through eventually, around every obstacle, through every erased archive, into every personal recorder kept in a desk drawer by a man who developed the habit after an early career failure and who has never been more grateful for a habit than he was on the morning of October 15, 2003. The recording exists. The name is on it. The gap is described. We will hear it. Not yet, but we will hear it. If the story moved you, the subscribe button is right there. Turn on notifications. Because the next story involves a secret recording Bruce Lee made 48 hours before he died, gave it to one person, and that person kept it sealed for 25 years. You are not going to want to miss it. The legend lives on. If you love Bruce Lee stories, like this video and subscribe. New stories every single day.